Can you guys hear me? All right, cool. So I've been working at Bodybuilding.com for almost 8 years now. I have seen our code go from spaghetti, no structure, anything. Have gone through phases. You know, for our front-end code, we went through moving everything over into some sort of standardized, jQuery. Everything was just plugins, so it was semi-reusable, but still not quite. But this past year, we've gone a really hard push to move towards a MVC framework, which was AngularJS. So when we launched our wrapper in December, that's when all of our front-end artifacts were redone. We moved to versioned artifacts, which means that everything is a lot more stable. Every time you deploy, you don't have to worry about one section of the site stepping on another section of the site. And so today, that's what I'm going to be showing you guys a little bit about. The first step in this is Bodybuilding.com has a ton of apps: gallery, Fitboard, forum, their store. They have the same core structures. They're going to be separate in terms of what their apps actually do. And so we needed a way to have that be flexible enough to where we can support both instances and still be rapid development. And so what we're starting out with is Yeoman, which is a scaffolding tool, which basically means that we can run a command on the command line that generates our entire folder structure for us. So inside of this left sidebar here, we have this generator demo. The beauty about Yeoman is that they have plenty of generators online. There's thousands of them. There's Angular, Bootstrap stuff, anything that you can think of. Plus, you have the ability to create your own, which is what we needed because all of our apps are going to follow the same structure, although have slight different pieces. So in this instance, we actually did. So you can see we have a generator and our templates. This index file is going to be our main Yeoman entry point. This is the configuration for what we want our structure to be built as. And the beauty of this is that we can leverage all the stuff from command prompts, like user prompting. We can store values, writing files to the file system, obviously. And so it goes in structural order by, the first method inside of the configuration, then the second, then the third. So you can see here we start with prompting. So we're going to prompt the user for a input name, so a name that they're going to call their application. We're going to store off that value, and then later on we're going to use that as a variable to be able to insert into the various templates. So we're going to use that as the title, and then these are all our templates that we're actually copying over into the source directory. And so if we look at some of these, you can see we are using the title variable here. So anywhere these variables are being set, they'll be replaced when they get generated. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I can go ahead and skip the Yeoman setup because that's a little bit more involved, but it's super easy. It's basically just a node module. You go and set it up online yourself. It's run through the command line, yo, and then you specify whatever your template that you set up is. In this case, I set it up as demo. So go ahead and call it demo. The first thing is going to be, it's going to be asking for my artifact name. Since I'm in the directory of artifacts, I'm going to go ahead and use that. And then you can see it went ahead and created everything for me. So if I ls this folder structure, you can see it took all those templates from the Yeoman directory and then put them inside of the directory that I'm currently checking out. That main.js file took that title that we gave it for the application name and then replaced it where all the variables were. So this is a really good way to get a structural application up and running in a pretty quick amount of time. And you can imagine for Bodybuilding.com, we have all of these different applications, and so it's pretty beneficial to have it going like that. Now that we have our structure in place, you can see that we have a bower.json and a package.json, which are used for bower and npm respectively. Those are going to be our dependency managements. So we'll go ahead and run npm install and bower install. We're going to download all of these from the internet. All right, there we go. So now we have all of our dependencies set up, we can run Grunt. If you're not familiar with Grunt, Grunt is a task runner. It's going to be the one that's really compiling all of our files for us, running linting if we need to. In this case, we're going to be using RequireJS to pull in all of our dependencies instead of listing them out inside of Grunt, which is a nice feature. Less is going to be used for our CSS. We're going to use ng templates, which is, with Angular, you can specify template files to use as external dependencies. In normal cases, when the application is started up, it will perform a GET request of that template and then pull it in and render it on the screen. So this takes care of caching those templates in advance where possible, so you don't have to make that external request. It would just stick them inside of our file for us. and then we're just going to copy require over because that's going to be our main file that gets run against. Here we're going to load up all of our tasks, and then this is where we register the default tasks. So this is when you run Grunt, it'll run the ng templates command, then the require command, then less, then copy. So this basically altogether compiles all of our files for us. So in here we can run Grunt. So you can see that it did our ng templates task, it did the RequireJS task, the less, and the copy task. In the templates task, there's no templates defined yet, so it didn't fail, but it's just letting you know that it created an empty file because there were no files to be found. So if we go back into here, you can see it created a dist file. There's the CSS that we had for some of our dependencies. There's the main.js file, which has contained everything. Obviously, in production, you would want to minify this to make it a little bit more friendly on the browser. And then here's require that I just copied over. Now that we have that, we can take a look at our demo page that I had set up. If you're seeing this, something is obviously messed up. You can check out inside of our elements. All it is our directive with some default content inside of it. I didn't want to overload it with pulling in the entire wrapper and everything from our website, but basically, if you're seeing something, then some Angular is not working correctly. And it's not in this case because we haven't set anything up. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So inside of our source directory, we have a couple of directories that were automatically created for you. That was handled by Yeoman, which are UI and services. These are common ones that we use quite often, so it's helpful to be able to create these every time just with some default values. So if you look inside this package, package.js is going to be used for require to pull in the dependencies. It's going to look inside of the dependencies that are being defined and pull those in as a means to concat the file that needs to be run in the distribution folder. Modules is going to be handled by Angular. This is where our module is being set up. We can do any Angular-esque stuff we need to. So inside of UI, we're just going to go ahead and create a directive. So inside of here, we will create a new file for our directive. And then we will also have a template file. Inside of this template, let's throw something in there. Hello, username. So this is going to be our directive. This is going to be a normal Angular directive, nothing super exciting, but we are going to be using require in front of it, which means that it will allow us to pull in all of our dependencies that we need. So specify our dependency. The big one that we want here is the benefit of why we have the modules in a separate file. We can pull in this modules directive, and now the module is available to us. If we go and look inside the module itself, you can see that we return the module, which means that we can add on to it inside of the directive instead of having dependencies separated out between different files. Everything is nicely combined into one file. Okay, and then we'll specify some directive properties. So our template URL is going to be UI/demo artifacts, demo artifact.html. We will link this. And if you're not familiar with any of these are just normal Angular methods. We'll have the scope, element, and attributes. Inside the scope, let's just set it to me. All right, so we have our directive set up. It's pretty simple, nothing super exciting. All it's going to be doing is looking for a directive called demo artifact, using this template to set the scope of Justin. And so it'll render hello Justin, if everything goes well. So now that we have the artifact set up, we can go back into our package and make it a dependency so RequireJS will pick it up during the Grunt task. Cool. All right. And so now if we go back to our main file, this is where our main application, our Angular application is set up. So we can go ahead and uncomment some of these, the UI module, so it's available within our app. We can run Grunt one more time. And then hopefully if everything worked, this should now say, hello, Justin. It does. So that's just a really simple example of how to use Require to pull in Angular directives or Angular components or anything, basically, and have Grunt compile them up for you. Now, the one thing that we also would like to do is have a dependency within that. So inside of our services, which is a pretty common thing, a file calls a service. So inside of our service, we'll create a new, we'll call it user service. Follow the same sort of structure. We'll pull in our service module. And so now our module is available to us just like it was inside of the directive. So now we can tag onto this. Let's create a factory, and we'll call it user service. And so a factory is just a normal JavaScript object, so we can just return all the methods that we would like to do. We can say get username is a function. Inside here, we could take parameters if we wanted to, and ideally you would if you were making an API request, but just for the simple example, we'll say Justin from service. Cool. So we'll go back into our package and then do the same thing that we did before so that it can be picked up by Require. We'll call it services / user service. Our module is still the same thing. This is some example code stuff that I usually add in there. It makes development a little bit easier for me. Inside of our main file, we can add our service package back in there so that anything we add underneath services will now be included, and then we will enable our module. So back inside the UI, we can go back to our directory here and now add it as a dependency. So now inside of this, instead of getting just Justin, we can do get username. And then if this works, it should return hello Justin from the service. So that's just how Bodybuilding.com is set up now. It makes our lives a lot easier instead of having spaghetti code everywhere. We have an internal Bower repo that you deploy versioned artifacts for, so nothing gets stepped on. Everything is very source controlled, and it just makes development a whole lot easier. We can run unit tests, and this allows different apps to be able to have their own internal dependencies while still bringing in common dependencies, such as code that we require for the wrapper.